In just 2 weeks, I had to evict 3 tenants. It was stressful, expensive, and honestly really eye-opening. But what I learned during this absolute chaos in my real estate investing journey completely changed how I manage my properties. And it's probably going to save me thousands of dollars. My evictions cost me just shy of $12,000. So let's talk about what happens when things go really wrong in real estate. What's up, social media world? It's me, BP, Ben Peters, coming at you with another video. I am a real estate agent, real estate investor. I own about 20 units in the Minnesota area. And so if you like this kind of content, please hit subscribe, hit that like button, and let's just get into the story of my 3 evictions. My first eviction story starts with a tenant that I'm gonna call her T. I'm going to keep the name out of it, but we're just gonna call her T. Her story starts in December of 2024. She contacted my property manager in December and said, hey, I've been in the hospital for a few weeks, and so I'm probably gonna be a little late on next month's rent. Now, me and my property manager, we want to be landlords with a heart. And so we thought, hey, absolutely, tell us what we need to do. We'd love to come up with some kind of plan so that we can create win-win scenarios. Sure enough, January rolls around and T did not pay her rent. We reach out via email, via text, and phone call. No response to email and text, and phone call went straight to voicemail. My property manager thought, oh, this is a little weird. So he blocked his number, gave her a call, and she answered on the very first ring. And he said, hey, I'm just checking in. T, where's the rent for January? Click. She hung up. So at that point, we realized, well, the rent probably isn't gonna come. And so we have to now give her notice of the eviction. The notice is called pay rent or quit. And in January of 2025, Minnesota just changed their law. It used to be once you posted the pay rent or quit, you had 14 days and then you could file for eviction. Well, now it's 30 days. So halfway through January, we post the pay rent or quit, which gets us to halfway through February to file for the eviction. We file for the eviction, we go through the whole process, and our court date is halfway through March. And in order to issue an eviction, you need to have a summons. I had to go to the sheriff in that county, pay him $100 so that they could issue the summons. It was a whole big, long, expensive process. So just a reminder, she stopped paying in January, February, March rolls around, the eviction date comes up, so she's 3 months behind. Not only 3 months behind with the rent, but also the late fees associated with it. So at this point, it's $4,300 of unpaid rent. Now, something to know about eviction court in Minnesota, it's always via Zoom now. They want to make it very easy for everybody to show up to their eviction hearings. So I show up to court halfway through March and my tenant is not there. And it's well known, if the tenant doesn't show up, the judge basically will always decide in the landlord's favor. So I thought, hey, this is gonna be a real easy process, in and out of court real quick. I'm excited that I'm gonna be able to get her out of my unit. So I go before the judge and he says, hey, what's the case? And I said, hey, my tenant's not here, hasn't paid rent for 3 months, blah, blah, blah. And he said, hey, I'm reading your complaint right here and I see the complaint, but I don't see the attached documents. What I didn't do was, in the court system, they allow you to upload documents. I uploaded them all separately. So I uploaded my complaint and my lease and the ledger of what she was behind on, all in separate documents. And the judge says, hey, they all have to be one PDF. And so because you didn't follow protocol, I am pushing back this eviction hearing. And I said, hey, Judge, I literally have all the documents right here. I can put them all into one PDF if you want. And he said, nope, it's got to be done before the hearing. And so they pushed back the eviction another week, the eviction hearing another week. So I have to do the whole rigmarole again. I have to go up to the sheriff, issue another summons, pay another $100 to the sheriff so that I'm following the process. So I show up a week later. This way we're almost through all of March. And this is the second eviction hearing. Well, sure enough, my tenant shows up. Now, this is the beautiful part of America, or maybe you think it might not be the beautiful part, but when you watch any cop show, they say, hey, if you can't afford a lawyer, one will be provided to you. So we show up in eviction court, and one of the very first things that they ask all the tenants, hey, do you want to see if you income qualify to talk to a lawyer? Well, my tenant said, yes, I would. And she talked to that lawyer for about 45 minutes. I do not income qualify to talk to a free lawyer. So I thought, hey, you know what? She's still behind on rent. It's not a big deal, whatever. Well, after talking to that lawyer for about 45 minutes, she comes back into the courtroom and says, hey, I'm ready to talk to the judge. So I thought, oh, wow, she's not wanting to work out a deal or anything like that. She goes to the judge and says, Judge, I want this case to be dismissed and I want the eviction to be expunged off my record. And I'm sitting there totally blindsided. I'm thinking, where is your justification here? She had 3 issues with me. Issue number 1, you issued the court summons to my child, and you have to issue the summons to somebody over 18. Issue number 2, I had a medical issue, so that's why I'm late on rent. So I shouldn't be held liable because of my medical issue. Issue number 3, you didn't give me proper notice according to Minnesota law. So I took my time to refute all 3 of these claims. I said, hey, the sheriff issued the summons. He told me, yep, there was somebody of age in the property. So that was clearly a lie. The second thing, and I have an affidavit from the sheriff stating that. The second thing was I had a medical issue. I'm like, okay, does that preclude her from having to fulfill a contract? So the judge threw that one out. But the third thing was what the judge got hung up on. He said, yep, according to Minnesota statute, you didn't give all of the information you were supposed to give in your pay, rent, or quit notice. And I said, how? What did I do wrong? I gave at least 30-day notice. I put the pay, rent, or quit. I even had a picture, and I'll show it to you right now, a picture of it on her door. What else did you want me to do? The judge said, there's one sentence missing from that document, and that's why you have not given proper notice, so I'm expunging this from her record, dismissing the case. If you want to evict her, you're gonna have to go through the process again. I couldn't believe it. When a tenant shows up to a judge and even says, I agree, I have not been paying for the past 3 months, but because I was missing one line in my 30-day notice, they throw out the case. I was so mad. So very first thing I did, I got off that Zoom call. I called 10 different law offices and I thought, all right, you know what? I'm dealing with somebody who might be called a professional tenant, and I need to have legal representation on this next one. So I hired myself a lawyer, paid him $1,500, and he is going through the whole process. We're in the middle of it right now. Haven't evicted this particular tenant T. Now let's talk about the third eviction. I have another property. This one is located in Fridley, Minnesota, and I have another tenant who is about 3 months behind. We're gonna call him A. Here's the main difference between T and A. A was very communicative through the process, said, hey, job laid me off. I'm trying to find some other places to work. I'm trying to put, some money away, make sure that I'm fully caught up on rent, everything like that. But once we served him with the eviction notice, he stopped paying at all. A had been late a couple times, but he always would pay at least by the end of the month. So do the whole 30-day notice thing again. He shows up in court. We are now the first week of April. Okay, so he hasn't paid since January. We are first week of April, 4 months behind. The judge says, hey, do you want free legal representation? A said no. And that's one thing I'll say I appreciated about this particular tenant. We go to a mediation room and it's just him and I there, just hashing things out. And I just said, hey, A, what's the situation? How can we make this better? He came into that mediation room and said, hey, I was gonna try and work something out, but once I saw the eviction notice, I just thought, you know what? Hey, I'd rather just get face-to-face with the owner rather than the property manager, and let's talk this out. So we're talking it out face-to-face in a Zoom room. It's just the two of us. And the very first thing he says is, hey, I could give you a list of excuses a mile long, but I'm not gonna do that. Your problems are not my problems. At the end of the day, I haven't fulfilled my end of the bargain, and I really, really want to make sure I don't have an eviction on my record. Now, again, me as a landlord with a heart, I'm like, hey, I appreciate that you've been honest through this process and you're communicative through this process. So the very first thing I said is, hey, what is a payment plan that could work for you? Because at this point, he was 4 months behind, plus all the late fees. It was $5,700 that he was behind. So he said, hey, Ben, I have a little bit of extra money right now. I'll pay you $1,700 a week until I am paid up. until I hit that $5,900 threshold. And I said, hey, I really appreciate it. You're supposed to be in this lease through the summer. This is what I'm suggesting. Once you get to that $5,900, because then he would be paid all the way through April. Once you get to that $5,900, okay, I want you out of the unit because clearly, hey, this is stressful for you. You're having to pay more than you're probably comfortable with. I will let you out of the lease, and I'll even give you your security deposit back if you leave my place in pristine condition. And if you pay up that $5,900, I'll expunge the eviction from your record. That way you can go rent another place and everybody's happy. Let's create a win-win out of this. A agreed to that. And A came up with that payment plan. That's something that's important to me. I want to make sure that he was comfortable with those payments and I'm not just coming up with them out of nowhere. So it's been 1 week since that eviction, and has A kept up with his payment plan? I'm happy to announce he has kept up with his payment plan. Now granted, it is only just 1 week, so we'll see if it continues going that way, but you as a real estate, maybe an investor, somebody who's just getting started, maybe you have a bunch of rental properties, what can you learn from this? I'll tell you what I learned from this. In particular, there's 4 things. Number 1 thing that I learned is have a set process for evictions. In Minnesota, when they changed that rule in 2025 from 14-day notice to 30-day notice, it really can extend that eviction process. And so now my process is rent is due on the 1st, grace period till the 5th, but if you pay on the 6th, there is a late fee. The 7th, there is more of a late fee, and it accrues until the 10th. If you don't make a payment by the 10th, I am now posting that 30-day pay rent or quit. Because then, by the 10th of the next month, I can now file for eviction. And they're only, well, at that point, they'd be about 1.5 months behind. Because if you try and, hey, let's try and work with you, hey, let's put together a plan, blah, 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 whatever. No, I have to stick to this so that I can get my eviction in time. And I'm not like 4 months behind. With both of these evictions, it got into that 4-month time frame, and I don't want to do that again. Number 2, hire a professional. Now, I'm a real estate agent here in Minnesota. I am hired by people. People say, hey, Ben, buying a house is a very complex matter. I don't want to do this by myself. Okay, so I am hiring you as an expert to deal with it. From now on, I'm hiring an expert to deal with my evictions. I thought, hey, I'll save a little money here. Hey, I don't have to pay a lawyer. Oh, this is easy enough. Well, sure enough, I did things wrong the first time. It extended the eviction out 1 week, and then I did it wrong a second time, and now we're extending by another 1.5 months. And so from now on, I'm hiring a lawyer dealing with all of my evictions. I want to make sure I'm dealing with a professional and they can do things that I don't know about. Number 3, have a clause in your lease that talks about legal fees. So I've dealt with, I believe, 6 evictions now. With those evictions, I was always paying out of pocket, paying out of pocket, paying out of pocket. I now have a clause in my lease that says, hey, if we go to eviction court and you are found guilty, you are on the hook for those legal fees. So the lawyer that I found charges $1,500. That is going to be a cost on the tenant. If they fall behind and they're found guilty, hey, that $1,500 is now coming out of their pocket instead of mine. Number 4, actions speak louder than words. I've talked about this in another video before, but don't just listen to what your tenant is saying. See what they're doing. With T, as soon as she blocked my property manager, I should have known right then and there, hey, she doesn't actually want to solve this problem. She doesn't actually want to communicate, hey, this is going to be a fight. Where with A wanted to communicate, wanted to talk through it. He showed, hey, I want to make this right. So when your tenants are telling you things through their actions, believe them. Don't just believe what they're telling you. So hopefully this helps, guys. Between the eviction filing fees and the behind rent, this is about a $12,000 loss that I am dealing with. So I think this video should cost about $12,000. Thank you for watching it for free. And so if this video helped, please hit that like button. But more importantly, share this. Share this with somebody who's wanting to invest in real estate, who's wanting to make their life better. And sure enough, I'll see you guys on the next one. See you later.